Hello! Today we're going to be talking about comparative adjectives and how to use them. So first of all, what are comparative adjectives? These are going to be adjectives that we're going to use to compare to different people, to different objects, or even ideas or things, based on one parameter. Let's take a look at examples that we have here. Chris is taller than Paul. The red apple is sweeter than the green one. Your idea is more interesting than mine. Okay, see how we are comparing these different aspects using comparative adjectives. So basically, we have that the comparative adjectives are those adjectives which compare the difference between the characteristic of two different nouns in a sentence. Okay? Let's take a look at some of those comparative adjectives. We can have cheaper, taller, younger than, clearer, larger, smaller than, louder, wider, longer than, newer, wiser, stronger than. See how these words indicate that something is more than the other one. So the word cheaper is going to indicate that it's more cheap than something else. Similarly, the word clearer is going to indicate that something is more clear than another thing. Louder, more loud than something else. So in those cases, we don't say more loud or more clear or more cheap. We have to use these adjectives: cheaper, clearer, louder, newer, taller, larger, wider, wiser. However, there are some rules to know exactly what is the adjective that we're going to use to make these comparisons. First, when we have words that have only one syllable, such as long, straight, big, tall, large, or hot, we are going to only add er. So for long, we're going to have longer. For straight, we're going to have straighter. For big, we're going to have bigger. For tall, we're going to have taller. For large, we're going to have larger. And for hot, we're going to have hotter. And then when you have a word with two syllables, such as honest, happy, narrow, famous, crazy, gentle. In this case, it's going to depend. Some of those words are going to end in er, but some other words are going to have more before the adjective. For example, honest is going to be more honest. Happy is going to be happier. Narrow is going to be narrower. Famous is going to be more famous. Crazy becomes crazier. And gentle becomes gentler. However, then, when we have words with three or more syllables, like expensive, popular, confident, dangerous, beautiful, or difficult, these words are always going to use more before the adjective. In that case, we have expensive, more expensive, popular, more popular, confident, more confident, dangerous, more dangerous, beautiful, more beautiful, difficult, more difficult. And finally, you're going to see that some of these adjectives that we use in comparisons are going to change totally. When that happens, we call them irregular adjectives. It just means that they do not follow the rules of ending in er or adding more before the adjective. Instead, they change their whole structure. For example, good is going to become better. Bad is going to become worse. Far is going to become farther. Many becomes more. Little becomes less. And far can also be said farther. That's just a different way to say far. So in that case, you can say something like, My cell phone is good, but my laptop is better. You see? I had a bad day, but your day was worse. Or maybe if you want to make only one sentence, you can say, your day was worse than mine. Okay, so just to complete the idea of how we use the different rules for the adjectives we have here, for one-syllable adjectives, you're going to have three cases. First, when dealing with one-syllable adjectives, the comparative form is typically created by adding er to the end of the adjectives, in cases like old, older, clean, cleaner, slow, slower. However, if the adjective ends in e, you only need to add the er, such as safe, safer, and nice, nicer. And then for adjectives that end in a vowel followed by a consonant, the consonant is usually doubled before adding er. You can see here big becomes bigger, and you can see that in bigger we have the letter G twice. Same with hot, that becomes hotter, and we double the letter T in the middle. For two-syllable adjectives, you're going to see that with most two-syllable adjectives, you form the comparative with more or less. Remember that more is going to indicate a higher quantity, and less it's going to indicate a lower quantity or quality. For example, more honest or more famous. However, if the two-syllable adjective ends with a y, you need to change the y to I and add er. The example is going to be happy becoming happier and crazy becoming crazier. And lastly, two-syllable adjectives ending in er or also in ie or o take er to form the comparative forms. The example is going to be narrow, narrower, and gentle, gentler. And for three syllables or more, you're going to see that you can add more or less before the adjectives that have three or more syllables. This is going to happen all the time. Examples: more expensive, less difficult. My cat is more intelligent than their cat. You're taller than me. My book is less interesting than yours. All of these are ways in which we can use comparative adjectives in sentences to compare qualities. Finally, talking about irregular comparative adjectives, we can see that irregular comparative adjectives do not follow the standard pattern when forming their comparative and superlative forms. So instead of adding er or est to the form of the adjective, we're going to change it completely in a different way that indicates comparison. As we mentioned before, we have good, better, bad, worse, far, farther, little, less, and many more. So to finish, comparative adjectives are the ones used to compare one aspect of two different people, objects, or concepts. They can be regular, ending in er or with more or less at the beginning, or they can be irregular when they change their structure completely. After these verbs, we can use than to complete the sentence in which we are comparing two things. Thank you.